Good evening and happy Friday, everyone. Josh is Severe Weather. I am a meteorologist in the Raleigh area, and I appreciate you joining me here this evening as we kick off the weekend. We still have Hurricane Rafael in the Gulf of Mexico, one of our strongest November storms to make it to the Gulf. And beyond that, we may not be finished. We're seeing some signal for yet maybe another storm here later next week in the Caribbean in a similar place to where Rafael formed. The next name on the list would be Sarah. So I'm going to talk about that. We'll also take a look at the Western Pacific and a powerful typhoon still out there churning and other threats beyond that. And then we're going to take a look at the United States and this powerful storm producing some rough weather here across portions of the south central United States. So let's take a look here at what we're talking about. Yes, Rafael is out there, expected to do a bit of a loop this weekend and then basically fade very quickly as the dry air and shear take over that system. Not really a direct threat to the United States. We'll have some moisture, though, spreading up into the south central states this weekend. Part of that coming out of the Gulf, but not directly from Rafael. We do have a disturbance moving into Hispaniola that'll head towards the Bahamas and Cuba this weekend, but it looks right now that it's very unlikely to develop. The area of greater concern hasn't formed yet. It's not even on the National Hurricane Center's radar yet, but I think they do need to take a look at it. And that is the same location here where we saw Rafael form, maybe a little south of it. We could have the potential for yet another system, which, if it does in fact form, has hurricane potential. So we're going to take a look at that here in this video. Here's a comparison from the only storm that Rafael could rival here in the Gulf. That was Hurricane Kate back in the middle of November 1985. That ended up hitting near Mexico Beach and Panama City Beach here in November of 85 as a Category 2. It was a Category 3. You can see Rafael here overnight was about the same intensity, just a little bit higher in pressure. So it doesn't take the reins away from Queen Kate here in the Atlantic. Here is Rafael right now. Winds are now down to 100 miles per hour. It's a Category 2 storm and expected to continue to weaken through the weekend, moving slower to the west at 9 miles per hour. And then elsewhere, we do have this disturbance tracking just north of Hispaniola, especially Dominican Republic, and east of the Turks and Caicos. But right now, very disorganized. It's part of an upper-level trough that extends all the way into the southwest Atlantic. And as that tracks west-northwest, I really think it's going to have a tough time developing. It's not going to be another Oscar from a few weeks ago at this point, even though it's tracking in a similar direction. We're just getting to later in the season. So that chance is now down to 10%, and I think it's going to go down to 0 here pretty soon. Here's a look at the Atlantic Basin. Here you can see Hurricane Rafael. You can see our powerful storm here over the southwest with some thunderstorms, maybe a little bit of severe weather across parts of Texas here heading into this evening. Powerful storm system in the eastern Atlantic, but that front extends all the way down here into the deep tropics, so it is killing off any kind of thunderstorm potential. We do have some flare-ups, though, to talk about. This one and then this one right here, and I will take a look at that with you here. And in the Pacific, still some flare-ups as well here with some heavy rain, but nothing showing any signs of organization. So aside from Rafael, things are fairly well behaved for the time being. This is the upper level water vapor image, and you can see what's going on here. Rafael between Louisiana and the Yucatan, moving westward at this point into an area of much drier air. There's a massive area of high pressure that extends to the north of the system, and that's keeping it from progressing northward. It's going to try to do that tomorrow, but it is going to run into resistance. It's also providing, especially on the western side of our storm, an extreme area of dry air. This air here is very unfavorable for our storm. The shear's not high, but the fact that it's so dry here in the mid and upper levels is going to keep this system from keeping its strength. And behind the system here is our next feature, a pretty broad upper level low here, kind of a trough here that digs all the way down into the Caribbean in this direction here. And the Hurricane Center does give this little spin up here, still a possibility of forming as it moves into here, but I really don't think it happens. One thing for sure is that between systems here, we've got a lot of northerly wind shear. So despite this flare-up of storms that the models are hinting will try to develop, it's going to remain at bay for at least a few days longer due to that strong flow out of the north. This is very unfavorable for storm development. But after Rafael moves out and this feature moves away, we're going to get into a place where high pressure rebuilds and allows the wind shear to cut down here next week. And that will give us the opportunity for something to gradually take shape here. It's going to take some time, but that is the thinking for now. Here's a look at the Gulf of Mexico again. You can see very fast wind flow aloft here, producing a lot of high cirrus across northern Florida. But all the rain right now is confined to western Cuba. Really no rain over the Yucatan. Everything is basically out over the open water of the Gulf. So we've got a nice trip here across the Gulf for the next few days here. A little bit of an east to west cruise here across the Gulf of Mexico this time of the year. Apparently, it's the place to be. Here's the visible image as it gets ready to get dark out. You can see our storm still not a huge storm, but it is compact, and it does have quite a bit of strong wind near the center here. But you will see dry air is beginning to get into this system, and as a result, it's not able to grow anymore to the west and north. You can see as well, here is our feed of moisture ahead of our next system, a little bit of convergence here. And so we're going to see potentially some severe weather heading into the evening in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And all this moisture heads east. A piece of that gets up from the south here. And we're going to see some pretty heavy rain across parts of Louisiana and surrounding areas over the weekend as well. Here's the infrared, and you can see how quickly things are fading, despite how good this system looked this time yesterday. It had a very well-defined eye. Today, it's starting to look like junk. It still has strong wind with it. You can still see a lot of rain and a lot of wind out here, so definitely nothing you want to take a cruise ship into, but it's definitely weakening. Has more of the look of one of those North Atlantic storms that's already spent time and is accelerating to the north and east, and that's due to the high pressure system to the north here. You can see this is the track. Category 2 here. Currently, it will be a Category 1 late tonight, and at this point tomorrow, I think we're going to be talking about a tropical storm. Now, the Hurricane Center has some uncertainty here. As you can see, it grows quite a bit, but no longer showing the northern turn, and eventually this becomes a post-tropical remnant low by the beginning of next week. The models a few days ago tried to keep this far enough south to allow it to keep its intensity, but very quickly they have backed off, and there's just no chance this thing is going to survive. So moisture is going to probably come down to the Bay of Campeche, but we're not looking at a direct hit on Mexico. So all in all, that's actually really good news. Here is the history of the storm. The orange indicates where tropical storm winds occurred, and the red indicates hurricane force winds. So a little smaller than Milton now as it's gotten into this area, and quite a bit smaller than Helene. And obviously that left bend has been a saving grace for Florida and points north and west. The ship's model shows us what's also going on here. A hurricane over the next couple of days and then weakening beyond that. And it's not the water temps. They're actually pretty warm here. The wind shear is coming up a little today, but it's going to drop here over the weekend. What we're really looking at is this huge drop here in relative humidity down to 30%. Very dry air in place here. That's going to kill our storm off, despite the fact that there's warm water and there's some higher ocean heat content across this portion of the Gulf. It doesn't matter. The air is too dry to support that. You can see here on the upper level chart, this is the European model, and here's the setup for tomorrow. Here's our high pressure system. Here's Rafael down in here, and here's our big storm over the southern plains. Now, we've also got an area of high pressure in here. So these two areas of high pressure are kind of going to lock arms here and basically build a wall over Louisiana and keep the system to the south. The flow here on the western side is out of the north. The flow on the eastern side is out of the south. And the two are going to cancel each other out this weekend, but eventually the northerly flow takes over. I'm going to show that to you in just a little bit so that you can see. Here we go into early next week, and at that point, the ridge to the west ends up stronger. Because what happens is our storm that's down in here is going to come up and over this ridge, and that is going to basically set up this weakness in here, kind of this upper level trough, and the area of high pressure over Mexico takes over. So our flow is now out of the northeast, and that is going to keep our storm from turning in this direction. There's just no way it's going to make it into that flow. In fact, it's going to kill our storm system, so there's nothing left over. Now, that high is going to spread into the Gulf next week, so we are going to have another warm week down south here. But underneath the high is where we need to watch for some potential trouble down the road. And you can see this is highly unusual to see this kind of a strong high so late in the season, but that's what we're dealing with here. But underneath of it, you can see lighter flow out of the east, and we've got some convergence down in here that could allow a storm system to eventually spin up. That's the pattern we saw with Rafael, and it repeats itself. So that's what we're looking at. Now, wind shear here, very high across the southern United States. And this system here is heading into that wind shear over the weekend. So it is going to get killed off here. There's quite a bit of wind shear as well with this upper level low that's in place here. It's kind of this trough. You see that kind of moving westward this direction here. We're going to have to wait for that to get out of the way before our next system can try to form. But you will see here later next week, the wind shear in the Southern Caribbean does drop off. And what wind shear we do have is actually going to be favorable for potential development here. It's going to be from easterly to southerly here. So that allows something to potentially form and ventilate on the northern side. It gets protected from what's going on here. So anyway, we're going to get to that in a little bit. I do want to show you our models. This is the spaghetti plots, the GFS, pretty much nothing coming up north. There's maybe one or two rogue solutions, but generally speaking, we do a little bit of a clockwise loop and then everything comes south and west, and I doubt it survives all the way down into here. And if it does, it's very weak. Here's a European showing a very similar setup here. Yes, there's one or two of these heading close to Louisiana, but all in all, I think we've got to go with the majority here and keep this tracking south and southwest. And here's our tropical models, nothing hitting Louisiana. This is the latest run, everything pulling this southwestward or even due southward in response to that approaching cold front. Intensity forecast, we are dropping off quickly. We'll be down to Category 1 tonight, tropical storm tomorrow, and low-end tropical storm Sunday into Monday, if it even survives that long. So obviously a very good forecast at this point. And then here's a look at the European wind field. And you can see there'll still be some strong winds around tonight, but we start to lose that intensity by tomorrow morning. We no longer have gusts predicted to go much over 70 miles per hour, and gusts at the coast of Louisiana stay under 30 for the most part. As we head into the second part of the weekend, you continue to see the wind field beginning to weaken and weaken and weaken some more. And this is hardly a tropical storm by the time we get to Sunday afternoon. It may even be dead by the time we get to Sunday night. So what's left of it comes down here. And honestly, when we've got this front right here, our strongest winds are actually going to be produced by the front, not by the storm center itself. So that is the synoptic look at this. Here's a look at the track on our halves model. And we'll take you through this real quick. Pressure coming up from the 970s into the 980s tonight, 990s tomorrow, and above 1,000 by tomorrow night. At this point, we have a low-end tropical storm and likely a remnant low by Sunday night and Monday. By the way, here is the next one showing up here on the halves, and that's not the only model showing it. It's weak, but you can see low pressure generally in the vicinity of halfway between Jamaica and Nicaragua here early next week. Now, the pressure's still pretty high. It's not really strengthening much, but then as we get towards the middle of the week, this particular model starts to develop this system. I think that might be a little bit too quick, but we'll have to see. This could be a tropical storm near or just to the west of Jamaica once again. Here's a GFS model, and you will see lots of moisture linking up with our front that's moving through Texas tonight into Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee tomorrow. Some of this will be tropical, but most of this is just going to be due to that southwest flow meeting up with our front here. And finally, some rain coming into Virginia and the Carolinas by the beginning of next week. It looks like Sunday afternoon, Sunday night into early Monday. And unfortunately, around the Orangeburg area as well in South Carolina, where we did need rain up until 2 days ago. Now we definitely don't want to see any of that. But you can see here on the GFS, we no longer see development of our system here north of Hispaniola. Some of that moisture makes it through the Bahamas into South Florida later on Sunday, but we just don't even really have much of a circulation. You can see on the GFS maybe a tiny little spot here to the west and southwest of Naples here by Monday afternoon, but really just going to bring some moisture up around our high pressure ridge. So we're going to see some heavier showers in this general vicinity in here. But that's really about it. This is the next area to watch, and you can see the GFS, while it's typically going to be more aggressive than the other models, doesn't have much of anything on the map here before the middle of next week. Speaking of that, the European forecast for next week does show our possibility again for something in the northwestern Caribbean. It's also showing another system out here in the Western Pacific. The following week, you will see whatever's out there tries to come up towards Cuba and South Florida, potentially. And I'll zoom in so you all can see that here. Just a second here. And it's not a great chance, but it's a chance here that something else forms here in the next week. And if it's still around, it's heading north and northeastward. So Cuba again, Bahamas, maybe Florida, maybe even Jamaica and Haiti. Just something to keep an eye on at this point. Once we get towards Thanksgiving week, though, you can see that chance has pretty much died off of having anything. And this is for a tropical storm, by the way. If I take you back just to tropical cyclone, including depression, our chances are quite a bit higher, but actual tropical storm. So as we go past next week and beyond, you can see that while there still could be something maybe on some of our ensembles, it's going to be confined to the Southwest Caribbean, and by December, we're finished. So really the next couple of weeks is what we got to watch. So this is our disturbance here. The European showing some hints that the next feature comes across and tries to develop. I don't think that happens, but you can see this is Rafael and this is potential Sarah coming through here next week, and the chances start to climb of a tropical depression as soon as maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. We're up to about a 60% chance. Here is Thursday, 70 to 80% chance, even 80 to 90% chance here towards Thursday night and Friday of next week. Then that chance starts to drop. So in my opinion, this is within the 7-day period. I think the National Hurricane Center needs to look at introducing a yellow area again at some point this weekend. They were a little behind with Rafael, and I think they're going to be a little bit behind with this one. Here's the European ensemble forecast. Here's Rafael falling apart by Monday. We start to see lower pressure again here southwest of Jamaica, and more ensembles showing things here towards the second half of next week. And again, it's going to be a guessing game until this thing forms, but there's quite a few solutions that pick up on strengthening here, as you can see. We also have some solutions coming across Cuba towards South Florida on the 17th and 18th. So just something to keep in mind, nothing to freak out about just yet. It's still well off in the future. Here's a pretty nasty solution from the Euro that has a stronger hurricane hitting Sarasota from the southwest. And boy, I really hope that that one is wrong, and I'm sure it will be, to be honest with you. Here's the Canadian ensembles. Again, here's Rafael falling apart. Here's our next feature starting to take shape early next week, and maybe a tropical storm as soon as Wednesday here. Some solutions pulling it west from the Caymans towards the Yucatan. Some solutions keeping it buried towards Honduras. Others starting to pull it northward and northwestward here towards Cuba or even Jamaica. And again, not a lot of support for something in the Gulf, but obviously with something down here we need to watch in Florida. Finally, the GFS ensemble, and I will show that to you. This one, of course, is going to be our most aggressive, and it's done pretty good recently, to be honest with you, but it could be a little bit too aggressive here. I don't think we have a hurricane as soon as Tuesday morning. Let's just put it that way. But we may see something start to form at that point. And we have some solutions going west towards Belize and towards the Yucatan. We have some that are stuck near Honduras and not moving much before Thursday and Friday, and maybe even carrying west into Central America, which would be a problem for Central America. But we also have GFS ensembles that pull this eventually northward towards the Yucatan or towards Cuba and the Caymans, and something we need to watch in Florida if that ends up being the case. But we don't really have anything moving southwest to northeast across Hispaniola. Everything would be going north or northwest. So here's the operational GFS, and I'll show this to you, but I'll just tell you right now, it's probably not going to happen this way. You can see things quickly intensifying here near Nicaragua next weekend, and then whatever forms there gets pulled northward. This has a strong hurricane going over western Cuba, unfortunately, and then continues that hurricane right up towards Fort Myers here. Now, this is just one model. I will tell you this here, it will probably change a million more times. The model run before, though, also had something that looked like it could be a threat to Florida here. It had it coming up towards Miami and Homestead around the same time frame. So that's two models in a row. And the model before that also showed something in the same general area coming right up through the Keys and Homestead. So that's three straight models with something aimed at South Florida on the 18th, 19th, and 20th. And Hurricane Kate did it. It came up and hit Florida around the 20th in 1985. So it's not like it couldn't happen. But you know what? We're not ready to jump on this just yet. It's just something we need to watch at this point. So the Western Pacific, unfortunately, still pretty busy here. We do have very strong typhoon, Yinxing. It has caused all kinds of problems in northern Philippines. Another area to watch that's going to bring rain right into the Philippines, another one southeast of it. But I think this one here has our best chance of developing, and that could be an issue for Guam and the Mariana Islands down the road. So the Western Pacific still playing catch up from what's been a less active season than what you might expect in the average year due to that La Nina kicking in. But here you can see 115 mile per hour winds here, still a very powerful typhoon heading close to Hainan, but it will do the same thing as Rafael. It's going to hit drier air. It's going to make the turn southwest, and that's due to a front dropping down through China and eventually a remnant low, which is good news for Vietnam. We don't need a big storm here, but still a pretty powerful one, unfortunately, here as it pulls away from the Philippines. And here's that forecast track. So let's talk about the U.S. here for a little bit. And the snow continues to come down in Colorado. perhaps more than a foot expected in the Denver area, especially south and east of you in Denver. Severe weather, a possibility in parts of Texas and southern Oklahoma, and a lot of dry air across California. We got to be watching for fires, and of course, very dry air across much of the Northeast, where we do have some red flag warnings in place. It looks like Rafael is trying to come this way towards Louisiana, but that is not the case. That is wind shear, and that is hurting our storm, but pulling some of the clouds north into the Gulf of Mexico. That's really it. So we will take that any day of the week. But here you can see winter storm warnings still for Colorado, western Oklahoma, northwest Texas, blizzard warning for northeastern New Mexico. That's this red here. And we have a flash flood watch across parts of North Texas, western Oklahoma, and now a tornado watch, including the Dallas-Fort Worth area all the way up to just west of Durant in Oklahoma. We do have red flag warning as well for much of the Northeast due to the fact that it hasn't rained in almost 40 days in some of these locations. Here's a look at the GFS model, just showing you what's going on here. Dry front coming down into the eastern United States. That's why we have the red flag warning. It's going to be windy and turning cooler this weekend. Some mountain snow in parts of Atlantic Canada, at least the higher elevations. Then it warms right back up Sunday as high pressure shifts east. You'll see moisture does make its way through the Mississippi Valley up into parts of the Northeast early next week. So we will get some rain finally. And I think that dry spell comes to an end by Sunday night and Monday in portions of New Jersey and the rest of the Northeast. But that's quickly moving out. It'll be dry and cooler and comfortable for a few days. Then the next one moves in on Thursday. And then another front moves in after that here. And that's the one that could try to bring our hurricane northward. And I say could because we just don't know yet. But it will be cooling off quite a bit here as we get closer to the end of the week before Thanksgiving. Slight risk for severe weather in our tornado watch area. You can see a 5% chance for tornadoes around and to the west and northwest of the Metroplex. Severe wind possible as well, and hail. Tomorrow, the threat for severe weather comes down, but the threat for heavy rain does come up, especially on Sunday across this area. And I will show you our rain totals here looking pretty significant over parts of Oklahoma and East Texas, but take a look at Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee here. Potentially several inches more of rain coming over the weekend. And here we go through tomorrow, mainly western Louisiana and western Arkansas, but some of that rain makes it into Alabama, northern Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, southern Missouri. This is Saturday at around 4 or 5 o'clock. Starting to get wet around Baton Rouge for the big game, but the worst stays west until we get to Sunday. And then we're going to see potentially 4 or 5 inches of rain in some places here, maybe even more just offshore of Louisiana. So that is coming here. We do need some of that rain, but it will be heavy in some locations. Here's a look at the rest of the Midwest, potentially a few inches where we do need it. Northern Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern and central Indiana, Ohio, and into West Virginia, and maybe even around an inch close to Detroit, Pittsburgh, Morgantown, into western Maryland as well. Most of that coming on Sunday. So that's what we got coming up here this weekend. Another video coming tomorrow, probably around or after lunchtime, but I appreciate everybody's time today. Hope you all have a safe weekend. As always, I thank you for your time, and I give all the honor and glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who gives me this gift to be able to share with you. And despite everything going on, we serve a wonderful God. Psalm 46 says, God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And we're in challenging times here, but we can go to God in those challenging times and allow him to fight those battles for us. I know the election brings some of the worst out in some folks, but what I'm going to say, and this may offend a few people, and I'm going to apologize for that, but I want you to get the idea that if you understand how we were all created and why we're here on earth, then it doesn't matter who was elected, because the person that's in control of it all is God through his son, Jesus Christ. That's who's in control, not a human being that'll be here for 4 years or less. Who knows? It is God. It's our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And you can make that choice to follow God, and he will come through in the end and give you the ability to live eternally with Jesus in heaven one day. And that's the good news I came here to share with you today, that there is a future and that there is refuge for you. and that we shall not fear. We should go out in faith and understand that that gift is coming. It's already been given to us, whether or not we've chosen to earn it, but we can choose to accept it. Hope everybody has a great evening, and we'll catch up with you here soon. God bless you.